Welcome to the Lambton College International Graduate Services and Support Center, your dedicated resource for navigating life after graduation. We know the journey can be complex, from understanding immigration processes to making career decisions and expanding your professional network. That's why we're here, to simplify these challenges and support your transition into Canadian life. At the International Graduate Services and Support Center, our mission extends beyond your academic achievements. We are here to facilitate your successful integration into the Canadian workforce and society. From career counseling to workshops on Canadian workplace culture and immigration support, our services are tailored to meet the unique needs of international graduates. We're committed to empowering you with the tools and knowledge necessary for success. Embrace the opportunity to connect with fellow graduates and professionals through our networking events and stay informed with our comprehensive webinars covering a range of topics crucial for your postgraduate success. Remember, the path to achieving your aspirations is a journey we undertake together. Ready to take the next step? Visit our website and join our supportive community. Remember to follow us on Instagram and on LinkedIn for upcoming immigration webinars, networking events, and much more. Together, let's make your postgraduate journey a success.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. My name is Cristina Yiguren, and I'm the coordinator of the International Graduate Services and Support Center. I want to remind you that we are recording this webinar so that you can watch it again on our YouTube channel, and also you will get the recording shortly. I want to invite you as well to follow us to our social media. There's our LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube channel. This is where we're going to post our upcoming events. So I recommend you to stay tuned, especially if you are from the finance or business industry. We will have a surprise for you shortly. So just follow us and stay tuned. I want to mention that this center is dedicated to assisting you, our international graduates, as you seek employment and settle into Canadian life after graduation. We are dedicated to assist all our 4 campuses in Canada. And today I'm very happy because we have an amazing guest with us. I will introduce her shortly. Let's come here. Okay. As I mentioned, we're very committed to support you in your post-graduation journey. And this is why we're hosting these events for you. Today, we're going to talk about an important topic, the employer job offer, foreign worker stream. And we have with us Elizabeth Lang. Elizabeth is a leading immigration lawyer in Canada. Elizabeth holds a Juris Doctor of Law degree from University of Toronto. She also holds a Master of Law degree from York University. Elizabeth has been certified by the Law Society of Ontario as a specialist in citizenship and immigration law, a prestigious list of which only approximately 65 lawyers in Canada belong, which is pretty impressive. So today we have a master with us. Elizabeth, once again, we really appreciate you with us today. Thank you for joining. Elizabeth would give us an idea about the employer job offer. We will learn the requirements for the applicant, for the employer, how to calculate our score. Then we will have the Q&A. And finally, I ask you to complete the survey so that we can just keep improving for you. Elizabeth, once again, thank you very much. And now I hope everyone gets great value from today's session. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Christina. It's great to be here with you all. Times these days with regard to permanent residents are not easy. And the express entry points have just risen so dramatically that we do these programs with the Ontario Provincial Nominee Program, which is what we're going to be talking today about, becomes very important for our graduates, for you guys, as to an alternative to the express entry system. So just a bit of housekeeping before I start on the slides. We are going to have a Q&A button, a Q&A session at the end. So if you would like to have any questions, put them into the Q&A button on the bottom, and we will try to get through as many questions as we have time for today. Okay? All right. So today we're talking about the OINP employer-based streams. And I wanted to give you a bit of a background on what these streams actually mean. So first of all, these streams are not express entry based. This means that if you are selected and you get your provincial nomination through one of these streams, you don't get 600 points added to your express entry application. Okay, what this is a permanent residence application that is completely separate from express entry. Once you get your provincial nomination, you can apply for permanent residence directly. It is also a very different selection criteria from express entry, and we're going to talk about those points. For example, one of my favorites about this is that age does not matter. It's not one of the selection criteria, okay? The draws are also very different than express entry. Express entry, normally we're seeing draws every 2 weeks or so. The draws for OINP are sometimes a few months before they actually have a draw. And so it's not necessarily that you can depend on, okay, which date they're going to happen. You just have to put yourself into the pool and hope you don't miss any draws. The draws are not always just based on points. Oftentimes now, the government is also drawing based on occupations, and maybe later on they might have other criteria as well. And finally, because this is an employer-based stream and it is a provincial nominee program, it means that you have to continue to be employed with the employer who submits the application to support your application in Ontario until you reach your permanent residence. You can't leave the province and you can't leave your job until you get permanent residence. Once you have permanent residence, then at that point, yes, you can do what you like, and you can leave your job if you want. And even the province, if you change your intention, you do have to show that you intend to stay in Ontario. But if later on you change your intention after you get permanent residence, you can do that. But before you get permanent residence, your intention must be that you intend to live in Ontario. Otherwise, your application would likely be rejected. Okay, so let me just give you a brief overview of how this system works. Okay, so first you create an online profile. Now, there are 3 different categories for the online profile: the international student stream, the foreign worker stream, and the in-demand stream. Okay, and each of them, they have their own profile. They have their own criteria. It's not like express entry where you can qualify, for example, under the foreign worker stream, under the the skilled worker stream. You can qualify under a Canadian experience class, and it all goes into one pool. For the OINP, they don't go into the same pool. They're all in 3 different pools. Okay, so once you create an online profile, you get you're staying there. Okay, and it's only after you get the invitation to apply that you can apply. Now, once you get the invitation to apply, you have a very short window of time to submit your application, only 14 days, which is not a very long period of time at all to gather everything, including what you need from the employer. Once you submit it, and the government takes maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months to decide. And then if your application is approved, you get the provincial nomination. Now, like I said, once you get the provincial nomination in these streams, you don't go and apply through express entry. You apply directly for 2 things. One, you can apply for a work permit. If your work permit is about to expire, you can apply for a work permit. But these work permits are not going to be open work permits. These work permits are going to be employer-specific work permits. And you can also apply directly then for permanent residence. Now, the one thing about timing about these programs is that the permanent residence process for these kinds of applications, when it goes to IRCC, can take a while, probably around a year and a half oftentimes, okay? So the entire process for the employer-based stream processes, maybe you're looking at 2 years or more, which is shorter than express entry, except if you can't get selected for express entry ever, then it's not shorter, because 2 years is better than never, okay? So I want to talk about the employer requirements. These applications are based on the employer. It's the employer that takes central, it has a central role to play in your applications. And the employer has to support your applications, and the employer has to qualify. So here are the requirements for the employer. They have to have at least 3 years of establishment, okay? Number 2, the gross income has to meet the threshold. Now, if your employer is located outside of the GTA, then the income is 500,000. If it's inside the GTA, the income is 1 million. The other thing is that they have to have a certain number of full-time Canadian or permanent resident employees who are reporting to the location that you're going to be working at. So if you're working outside of the GTA, it's 3 employees. If it's inside the GTA, it's 5 employees. The job offer also has to be full-time and permanent. Okay. Then we look at the applicant's requirements. So last time you would have talked about the international student stream, and that's where your salary meets median entry-level wage. The job offer has to be high-skilled. You have to apply within 2 years of your graduation of a 2-year program or a 1-year postgraduate program. So right now in Ontario, the postgraduate program has to be a graduate certificate from Ontario, okay, and it has to be public university or college like Lambton College. Today, we're going to concentrate on the foreign workers stream. So for foreign workers stream, it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be someone who's graduated from the international student stream. The foreign workers stream could be your spouse who may have an open work permit. It could be for, anyone in who meets the criteria. And what is the criteria? First of all, the job offer has to be high skilled. The salary now, instead of the international student stream, which is entry wage, the salary for this one has to meet median wage. Okay, and how do you know this? Well, it's on the job bank's website. You can search the NOC code, and you can search the area, and they will say what is the median wage. Okay, very importantly, to qualify for this, you have to have 2 years of work experience in the occupation in the last 5 years. Now, the 2 years of work experience does not have to be with your current employer. It does not have to be in Canada. It could be outside of Canada, but it has to be in the same occupation. There's a third one, and it's called the in-demand stream. So the in-demand stream is something where it's one of the only low-skilled permanent residence options in Ontario. And what it is there is a list of occupations on this. So for example, construction laborers, or there could be used to be truck drivers. Truck drivers are high skilled. A lot of it is farm workers. Now, outside of the GTA, they're also allowing manufacturers. So go to, if you're interested, go into the list and check it out, okay? So if you have 9 months of work experience in one of the in-demand occupations on that list in Ontario, the salary meets median wage. And also for the in-demand stream, you have to pass an English level of 4 and have high school as well, okay? But if you or your spouse meets that criteria, then you can also enter the pool for that. So now, I don't know if you guys can see these points very clearly. We're going to send out the slides to everyone so you can, blow this up and look at it a little bit more clearly. But what I wanted to tell you is the points selection system is very different for the OINP compared to express entry. And it's also very different depending on the category in which you're going to be applying for. So for the international students, student stream, all of the criteria matter, basically. For the foreign worker stream, however, education does not matter, okay? Location of study does not matter. For the in-demand stream, they don't care about the tier category, they don't care about education, and they don't care about language level or study level, okay? But what they do care about, for example, for foreign worker stream, they do care about the NOC code for the occupation. They care about the Canadian experience, and your earnings history and your work permit status. They care about your language for the foreign worker stream. And they care about the location of your job offer. So if the location of your job offer is in Toronto, you get 0 points. GTA is 3 points. Outside of the GTA, you get 8 points. And in Northern Ontario, you get 10 points. Okay. Okay, now, I want to speak with you guys about a very important matter when it comes to the OINP. Like I said, this kind of application is really dependent on the employer. And in my practice, I have many clients who are employers. I have many clients who are individuals. And I would tell you, the employers, there's nothing that bothers them more than when someone just puts themselves into a pool, and if they're selected, then goes to the employer and says, hey, I've been invited to apply, and you have 14 days to give me all these documents. So give me all these documents, okay? It's a way to really make an employer feel very cornered. And oftentimes the employers will say, no, I don't know what this is, and I don't feel comfortable to do that. So I want to give you guys some tips on how to ask your employers, how to speak to your employers about supporting you in your application. Because this application, you really do need their support to help you. So first of all, what does employer sponsorship mean? Well, that's a trick question because there is no such thing as employer sponsorship in Canadian immigration law. Okay, that is a US immigration law term. And it is a very loaded term. When someone hears sponsorship, they think, oh my God, I'm responsible for this person. Okay, and so make sure that you use proper terminology when you're talking about what an employer can do for you. I wouldn't tell an employer, you have to sponsor me in order for me to get PR. That already sounds really bad, to be honest, and it's not even true, okay? In order for an employer to help you, they need to support you in your permanent residence application, okay? Now, for the OINP, employer-based streams, First of all, like I said, don't blindside the employer. Go and submit your profile without discussing it with them first. You're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be something where you first get the permission of the employer to help you, and then you submit your application. The employer needs to meet the qualifying conditions. I have many employers who come to me after people have put themselves into the profile and they say, can we do this? And I look at their situation and I say, no, you can't. And so if you go and do this before talking to the employer and making sure that the employer actually satisfies the criteria, then you're wasting everyone's time and energy and probably your own money. Okay. The employer may be required to submit information either through the employer form that they have to submit for your application, or later on if the government sometimes asks them for more supporting documentation. And a lot of this information is very sensitive. How much do they earn last year? What is the payroll information for other employees? You know, a lot of these kind of documentation is information that employers often don't feel comfortable to have their employees know about it. And really, for yourself, you don't really need to know about it. You don't care yourself, but the government wants it. So that's why you want them to provide it. Okay. And so it's very important in these kind of cases to have a lawyer who the employer trusts act as a firewall in between. Okay, so that if the employee, when you submit your application and we need to submit the employer form, the employer just gives the employer form to the lawyer and the lawyer submits the application on your behalf so that you don't get to see the information from the employer. Okay, like I said, it has to be an employer, a lawyer that the employer trusts. And so normally what I do when someone comes to me and, you know, the OINP foreign worker stream or international student stream might be something that fits them, is I say, let's have a call with your employer and I will explain to them what they have to do, what their obligations might be, and then make sure that they're comfortable with it before we go into the system. In that situation, then when you're invited to apply and the 14 days starts ticking, your employer then is very cooperative because they know it's coming. And in fact, we might start collecting documents well before you get an invitation to apply, so that when it comes time, we just get them to sign it, sign the forms, sign the letters, and we are very comfortable in submitting it within that very short time of 14 days. All right, so just to recap, okay? Next steps, understand your immigration pathway. This may be the right pathway. There might be other pathways that are better for you, okay? And then if you do have that in mind as to what you need to do, make sure you talk to your employer about possible ways they can help you, okay? You might also talk to them about your options if they don't help you. But sometimes it might be important for the employer to understand that you're not going to be able to stay in Canada without another work permit when your work permit expires, or if you don't have permanent residence. So this is not a situation that they can take lightly, okay? Make sure that that open communication is there with the employer, and often you may need a lawyer to speak on your behalf because they know what, you know, we know what we're talking about, and the employer also trusts us because we're experts in the field. Also, the employer will want to ask the lawyer normally, what is their obligations when they are helping you with your applications, okay? And that is something that I normally speak with the employers at length about and make sure that they're comfortable about what they need to do, okay? Then afterwards, retaining your lawyer to help you with your application so that they can create that firewall is very important most of the time, not only to make sure that your application is submitted properly, but to make sure that your employer is comfortable with assisting you in the application. All right, so that's all I have for today for my regularly prepared presentation. Now, let's get to some questions. But before I do that, I'm going to say a few things. One, if you want to have a consultation about your situation, we offer Lambton College graduates and students a discount for the consultation. So normally our consultation fee is $150, but if you tell me you're coming from Lambton College, the consultation fee is $100, and we can do a consultation through Zoom or Teams, and we can go through a plan for you. Also, check out our social media. There are so many changes that are coming up these days that we post things on social media. We also send out newsletters as well. And so for all of you who have signed up for this webinar, we're going to put you on our news blast list so that we can tell you what news is coming out. Because what I tell you today is true today, but it could very well change next week and probably will change by next month. And so the only way I'm able to keep you apprised of new changes that may affect you is through our news blast. Okay, and we'll also send out the slides as well to you. All right, so shall we get going on some questions, Christina?
Yes, perfect. Right, I have shared as well in the chat Longman Goldie LLP information. You can have it there. And please remember to keep your questions in the Q&A. We do have some questions in the chat, so we can miss them. Just go to the Q&A. Let's get it started. What do we have here? And we will try to answer general questions, at least at the beginning. So let's see, we have online jobs, company based in Ontario qualify for this stream to someone who has an online job.
Okay, so this person says that they have online job, company is based in Ontario. So I'm not sure if this person is actually in Ontario. So first of all, if you are in Ontario and you are reporting to a job where the company is in Ontario, then you could qualify for that job. If you are, a lot of jobs are hybrid these days, right? And so that's okay. You don't have to work 24/7 or 5 days a week from that office. But as long as they have an office location in Ontario and you are in Ontario and you're reporting to that office, then that should be okay.
All right, good. Let's see, the first one is someone who has 5 years of experience and wants to know if OINP considers only last 5 years experience. So in my case, OINP will count only 2-ish years now and 1-ish
Yeah.
next year.
So it's only 5
Like,
years from the time that you apply for the application. And when you receive the invitation to apply, now when you put yourself into the pool, when you receive the invitation to apply, you submit your application. You need to have 2 years in the last 5 years from that time. And this person also said that their company is based in BC, but they work from Ontario. So in that situation, if your company is based in BC, you wouldn't be able to qualify under the employer-based streams. Your employer has to be located in Ontario.
all right, good. With all the changes that Canadian government is making with immigration, the OINP will still be open for 2025? Great question.
Yes. So the OINP is a separate government than the the federal government. The OINP is the Ontario government. Now, certainly there will be changes to the programs, but the federal government has made a commitment to give the provinces more power to decide who wants to get permanent residence. So of course, I can only guess, but I would be very, very surprised if the provincial nominee programs are closed. I don't think that would be the case. Provincial nominee programs are open, As to what these programs will be, there will likely be some changes. And, the employer-based streams, I think, will still be there, but there may be some changes as to how things are applied, some of the criteria, some of the selection. So stay tuned. We'll be sending out some news blasts, and certainly for the most part, what I normally advise people, because immigration programs change so much, that if you qualify for a program, put yourself in and apply for the program. Even if later, let's say you can get invited through express entry, you can do both in parallel. So, who knows what's going to happen in the future. If you can qualify, apply now.
Mhm. We have seen some similarities as well between the international student stream and the foreign worker stream. And there's a question, if an international student stream, if we meet 2 criteria, still we can get the invitation?
So if you meet both criteria, you have to decide which pool you want to submit yourself into. You can't just put yourself into one pool and expect the system to figure it out. You would have to put yourself into, for example, the foreign worker stream
Mhm.
or the international student stream. And then the system will make an invitation depending on which stream, which pool you've put yourself into.
I believe it means more like here she's meeting 2 criteria from the international student stream. So if something is missing, can still apply?
Oh, okay. So if you only have 2 out of the 3 criteria,
Mm-hmm.
no, you have to meet all of the
All
criteria
right,
in order to qualify.
good. If I want to change my work after get the PR, like 1 year after for a better position or offer, can I do it?
Yes, you can certainly change and do whatever you want after you get permanent residence. Before you get permanent residence, that's another matter. And so sometimes, I've had clients, I always tell my clients, don't move. If you get your nomination, we're waiting for your permanent residence with the federal government, just stay there. Make sure you find a good employer that you're willing to stay there for 2 years, but stay there. But sometimes, unfortunately, some of my clients get laid off. And in that situation, then, they would have to withdraw their permanent residence application, unfortunately, in that case. So until you get your permanent residence, you have to stay in that position with the employer. After you get your permanent residence, do whatever you want.
Perfect. We have someone who has already applied for OINP and says that it is in progress right now. How long it takes for an answer and what should I do if I get approved?
So how long does it take to get an answer? It's hard to say. Most of the time, the applications are approved 3 to 6 months or so. But sometimes, if there's a lot of applications, they may take longer.
Mhm.
And also near the end of the year, where they fill up their quota, they might not make a decision until the beginning of the following year. As to what they need to do once they get invited to once they get the provincial nomination, well, with that provincial nomination, you can apply for your permanent residence then. And if your work permit is about to expire, you can apply for a work permit.
Okay, good. We have a very good question here. What documents we need from our employer? Do huge companies in Ontario like Rogers support in OINP?
The documents that you need from your employer are normally, they need to have the employer form signed. And oftentimes, I'm so sorry. Oftentimes, they will want an employment contract, and we normally draft a support letter for the employer to explain what the situation is.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes if it's from a smaller employer, later on, the Ontario government might come back to the employer and say, hey, we want you to submit other documents like tax documents, leases, etc., to prove that you meet the criteria. Do larger companies support OINP? That's a very good question. And it depends certainly on your employer, on your supervisor, on your HR. I have seen a lot of larger employers be reluctant to go through the OINP. So sometimes maybe it's because of the information that they have to share. Sometimes they just have this policy. So it's very important for many of you, if you are going to look for a job, even before and you have several job offers, for example, you might want to select and ask the employer before you accept the job whether they will support you for permanent residence through programs like the OINP employer-based streams.
Good. What if the company is small and there are less than 5 Canadians or PR?
If they don't meet this criteria, then they will not qualify.
So we are sure, guys, we need to meet all criteria or we
That's-
cannot go forward with that. Okay. Let's see. Is it current employer documents or previous employer documents are needed for this stream?
I'm not sure why previous employer documentation is needed for the stream. We need to,
Probably because
yeah.
you mentioned that we can use our previous employers.
Well, we need to have we need to have the current employers with regard to showing that they meet the criteria for offering you the job. Then we need to show that you have work experience for the foreign worker stream. That work experience may be from other employers, and we'll need letters, etc., for that, your previous work experience. But the current employer is what we need just to show that you have a job offer that meets the criteria.
Perfect. Can a fresh graduate from Lambton apply for OINP already? I am still waiting for my work permit to arrive.
So a kind of fresh graduate, you know what? You can
Again, depending on the criteria.
yeah, you can put yourself into the pool. The work permit, you get points for having a work permit, and I would argue that on implied status, it counts towards that. But oftentimes they will come back to you and say, show me your work permit afterwards. But yeah, you could, under the international student stream or the foreign worker stream, you could put yourself into the pool.
Yeah, we have many questions related to the criteria. So everyone just remember, you should meet all the criteria. You cannot apply. We're gonna type this
I have
answer.
a question up here that I think is a really good question, which is, what is considered as part of the GTA for OINP? And that's I think it's a very good question, because the criteria for the employer inside the GTA is very different from the criteria for people outside of the GTA. So if you're looking at the closest city that is outside of the GTA on the west side, you would probably be looking at Hamilton. Hamilton is what is outside of the GTA. So you're looking at Peel, Durham, Halton, Toronto, City of Toronto, all those. There's a criteria that's on the OINP site where that's the GTA. North, you can have like Barrie is outside of the GTA. Certainly, so there's a certain definition, and it's those regions around the Toronto, Peel, Durham, Halton. I think there's something else there as well, that would be considered GTA.
For someone graduated Lambton College, oh, it's gone. Lambton College a few months ago, and now just starting work here full-time in the field. Which one is the best stream, student stream or worker? Again,
It
we will need
really
to review the
depends on your
criteria.
Come for a consultation and we'll discuss. In general, I do find that the draws for international student stream may be a lot more competitive than the foreign worker stream. But certainly, it depends on your criteria.
Yeah, there are many things we need to review for that one. The points for language is per skill, or is it the lower mark than I get in the exam that one will count?
Sorry, the points?
The points for language is
Yes.
per skill. So yeah, you will get 4
So,
different.
yes. So for example, they take the lowest skill level. So let's say you get a CLB 7 in reading and and everything else you get a CLB 9. Well, your skill level will be at the CLB 7. So whatever is the lowest level for one of the skills.
We have a question related to French, and I want to invite you next week. We're going to host a webinar about French and how you can get your PR with Elizabeth, and also Rosetta Stones, where you're all invited. The question here is, does French has any extra points?
It does. I think if you have 2 languages, then you do get extra points. But I will invite you to come to our session, like Christina said, next week, because if you speak French, you don't need to go through this program, likely. There's probably going to be a lot of other programs that we can do for you.
Can those 5 employees be contracted full-time employees? So
They have to be employees. They can't be contractors.
Okay.
They have to be full-time permanent employees.
What else? We still have 37 questions. Let's try to get a general one. Oh, this one we replied. I think we have seen this as well. We can't change job while in process. Update IRCC. I don't know if they can change the job or
No,
they
you cannot
will
change the
need
job.
to.
No, because these applications, the concentration is on the employer. The main reason for these kind of applications is not just to allow people to apply for permanent residence. The main reason for these applications is to benefit Ontario employers who may have valued employees that they want to have hired. And so if you are change jobs, you can't just inform them. You can't even just inform the OINP. You will have to resubmit your application again. You put yourself into the pool, get invited, and resubmit your application again. Okay? So make sure if you're going to apply for this that you choose a good employer that you wouldn't mind staying for 2 years.
My work falls under 2 NUCs. Can I open 2 profiles with different NUCs?
No. No, you have to choose one, the one that fits the best. I wanted to there's this question here, and I think it's a good question to address, Christina. This person has asked, without the 600 points, is it not kind of difficult to get the permanent residence because the score is going to be a disadvantage in front of others? I think it's very important to address this because what I see the most is people get it confused that you are going to go through express entry with this kind of application. You don't go through express entry. So not getting 600 points doesn't matter because you're not going to go through express entry. Once you get the provincial nominee program, you don't have to be waiting in a pool to get invited to apply for permanent residence. You apply directly for permanent residence. Okay? So this kind of application is completely separate from express entry. That's why we don't care about 600 points. You don't get the 600 points, and we don't care about 600 points because you don't need to worry about being selected. You are going to apply directly for permanent residence after you get this provincial nomination.
Perfect. My employer only provides an employment letter. They will not fill out or provide any other documents. Can I still apply?
You
I guess
may
no.
apply,
Okay.
but sometimes the employer, the office, they may have other questions. And I think in these kind of situations, it is important to speak with the employer and ask them why it is that they don't want to, for example, sign a letter that explains the situation. Normally what happens is we draft a letter and send it to an employer to review and make sure that it's accurate. So that we reduce the time. We don't need them to write a letter, and they usually don't know what to write, so I don't want them to write a letter, but I give them that letter and they have time to review. They don't need to, uh, just say, yeah, do whatever. They are reviewing that letter for accuracy, and then they submit it. Sometimes employers just don't understand what it is that they need to do, and they're afraid to do things. And so it's very important to communicate with the employers and make sure that they are comfortable with submitting. Now, of course, sometimes the employers may be very reluctant to provide information to employees about financials, about certain things with their company. And so in that situation, it is important to have a lawyer who can represent both sides, you and the employer, and have you both trust that lawyer to file it properly and be that firewall with that information in between.
Perfect. Can we submit a PR application on the spouse job, making him a primary applicant because I'm working with the bank, but on a contract role?
You can submit for anybody who qualifies. So a lot of times we submit these applications for spouses. Sometimes spouses, they can do the in-demand jobs because they have the open work permits, and the in-demand jobs are much easier to get selected sometimes because the criteria is much lower. So it certainly doesn't have to be you who is the student. Oftentimes, if you have a spouse, whenever I have a consultation, I want to speak with both of you because as a family, you work as a team. And I want to speak with the entire team and have a game plan for the entire team.
Perfect. Yeah, I believe if they can even have two different applications, probably one the student and the other one the spouse. That's
Yeah,
possible, right?
put them in. Certainly, you will have one nomination.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have two nominations, but yeah, we can certainly look at doing that.
What is the best way someone who is out of status for regain her status and transition into PR? This is a tough question.
Very difficult question. I can't
Yeah.
answer it right now, but if you are in that situation or you know someone, come to me for a consultation and fast.
Mm-hmm.
There are very strict timelines as to when someone can restore their status, and we don't want to miss any of those deadlines.
Perfect. Let's see, what do we have? Something else we have some specific questions.
Okay, so I want to address this question, Christina. This person, now this is not employer based, but it's an interesting question. This person said, I just applied for my postgrad work permit and received my temporary postgrad work permit. Should we wait until the original postgrad work permit documents before we try to apply for permanent residence? So there is no such thing as a temporary postgrad work permit. Okay? When you apply for your work permit, oftentimes you get this letter. And this letter, it's called WP-EXT. And it says that you are able to work in Canada until a certain date. okay? This letter does not give you any status. It's just a letter that you can use to go to OHIP, and sometimes you can present it to your employer to show you have status. You have status not because of this letter. You have status because you submitted your application before your within 90 days of your program expiring, and while your study permit is still valid. Okay, you have implied status whether or not you have this letter. One annoying thing about this letter is that they put a random date on this letter, and it's right now it's 6 months. Before it was 3 months. And it seems to be that if you don't have a decision by this random date, that you lose your status. That is absolutely not true. You have status until a decision is made in your case if you submitted your application properly. This letter means nothing with regard to status. It helps you to get OHIP. It can sort of be something that, you can show your employers, although this date that's on it can be very confusing, and employers often get scared if you don't have a decision by that date and you don't have a work permit, they often get scared, which is, a really bad thing and completely untrue, okay? So don't think that this gives you temporary status at all. You have status until a decision is made.
All right, someone's working at a company who has 10 branches. I work at one branch, and that branches have 3 employees. Is my company eligible?
Right. So it's the branch that you are working at that needs to meet the criteria for the employees. If it's outside of the GTA, 3 employees is fine if they're all Canadian or permanent resident employees. If they're not, and 1 or 2 are foreign workers, or one of them is you, then it probably won't meet. So it depends on the location where you are reporting to. I want to have this other question where this person says, is the OINP process similar to the LMIA process, as my employer does LMIA applications, but is reluctant to do the OINP? Okay, so no, the OINP process is not similar to the LMIA process. And this is where it's very important for, if this person came to me for a consultation, I would say, please let me have a chat with your employer, because the OINP process is much, much easier for the employer to do. The OINP, if you currently have a work permit, the employer does not have to show they can't find a Canadian to do the job. They don't have to recruit. They don't have to show that you're specialized. They don't have to do any of that. Okay? So it's not something, it's much, much less onerous for the employer to apply than an LMIA. But the employers often get this confused, and they think, oh my God, I have to do LMIA. And it's probably going to be worse than LMIA or something like that. Okay, so it's very important that I speak with the employer and get them to understand, hey, this is not a lot of work. It's probably like 15 minutes of your time to review and make sure this is okay. And that's all you need to do. Okay. You don't have to recruit Canadians. You don't have to show that this person is specialized. And also a very big advantage for the employer is they get to keep you for 2 years. You're not going anywhere. They can fire you if they wanted to. They can lay you off just like any other employee. But you, unless you wanted to give up your permanent residence, will have to stay with them for 2 years. So it's a big advantage for the employer as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good approach. We need to know how to explain them.
Yeah.
What will happen if we don't apply within 14 years after invitation to apply? Will they get another invitation?
14 days, not 14 years. Yeah, if you don't apply within 14 days after the invitation to apply, then you give it up.
You missed your chance.
Yeah,
That
you
was
missed your
it.
chance. You might get another invitation. You'll have to wait for another invitation to apply.
Will the government stop processing of the medium wage LMIA fields which are in process as per new LMIA policy?
So the LMIA is the temporary foreign worker program is going through a lot of changes these days. The government has already announced severe restrictions for low wage LMIAs. There are other kinds of LMAs out there, though, including something that supports your permanent residence applications. But these are likely, they are already very, very long wait, around 6-7 months. They're probably going to be even longer once the low wage is shut down. I think it's September 26th is the date. So, I mean, it doesn't really have much to do with the OINP, with our programs, but, you know, come and we'll have a chat if these kind of things might affect you. We need to do a plan for you. Now more than ever, it's very precarious kind of situations. We don't know what is happening. There's probably going to be an election very soon as well. And the government, I think, is putting a lot of, they're feeling a lot of pressure, but they are also putting a lot of scapegoating on international students and temporary foreign workers. And they are saying that, oh, you know, it's like it's your fault that the economy is the way it is, which is completely untrue. But the government, they're going through an election and they have to shift the blame somewhere. I have to say that you guys are some of the bravest people I know. People who come to this country from another country where you don't know anyone here, you're leaving all your support back home, and you are ready to be brave and do what you need to do in this country. You're extraordinary people. And I think that is absolutely a shame that the government, after they invited you all to come, after they told you guys and made promises to you guys that you would have a clear path towards permanent residence, that they now are cutting things left, right, and center. And I want to say that don't give up. There are still ways to get permanent residence. For most, I would say almost all of the consultations that I have, and I have hundreds a year, very few people can I say there's no hope at all for people. There's always something that we can do, and it will depend on how willing you are to do certain things and how likely it is that you are able to do that. But I think if you plan properly and if you have that determination, the chances are still there. But don't wait, because as immigration laws change, like I said, if you qualify for something, my advice is always to go and grab that opportunity right away.
Absolutely. We still have hope. I know we're all overwhelmed and stressed, but yeah, there's always hope. We have Elizabeth, we have immigration lawyers, and the center is here to support you. I don't know if we can go very briefly to the last question.
Sure.
Just a second. It's about international student stream. Someone who has been working before finishing the college, this work experience won't count, right? It's only the work experience after finishing the college.
So for the international student stream, you don't even need any work experience in order to qualify. For the foreign work program, you can use the work experience that you've gained while you, even outside of the country, you can use that as well. It's just 2 years in the last 5 years. For
Perfect. So you just graduate and you're ready to apply. We do have a webinar on international student stream. So go to our YouTube channel. You will find all the information there. Okay, unfortunately, the time's up. We have replied 30 questions. So Elizabeth, once again, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to our graduates. Keep trying. We're here for you. Next week, we hope to see you here. We're going to discuss this important topic, French, in your immigration journey with Elizabeth and Rosetta Stone. So just stay tuned. Also, as I said at the beginning, finance and business graduates, we have a surprise for you. So just follow us on our social media, and I hope to see you next week, everybody. Thank you once again, Elizabeth. Have a great afternoon. Take care, everyone.
Fun.
Bye-bye. Thank you.